We're continuing this morning our theme of our foundations of faith, and I'm looking this morning at Salt and Light, the local church. If you look in our foundations of faith in our website, there's loads to say about it, but the main line says this: the local church is a family of ordinary, flawed, but forgiven people who seek to love God and love their neighbour as they love themselves. The Greek word in the New Testament for church is ecclesia, and it literally means sent ones. So you go out and you make a difference. And it's a word that the early church borrowed from the Roman colonizers around them, because the Romans said, we're going to put ecclesia in each community, village and town. And ecclesia is simply this: it's people who are leaders and they're wise and they make decisions for that community to make that community a better place. And the church thought, that's what we should be doing. So we call ourselves ecclesia, church as well. And we all know that church isn't the building, is it? This building isn't the church. We don't go to church on a Sunday. We are the church. Wherever we are, here on a Sunday, at work, at home, at school, in the week, we are the church wherever we go. And Jesus said to us, the church, in Matthew chapter 5, you are salt and you are light. He didn't say to us, if you're spiritual enough, you're salt and light. He didn't say to us, if you know a lot of the Bible, you're salt and light. He didn't say, if you've not done anything wrong this last week, like pinch your sister's arm, I used to love doing that as a kid, then you are salt and light. It's not about us. Jesus said, because we are followers of him, you are salt and you are light. You are salt, you're scattered through the earth, and you are light gathered together, shining to make a difference. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 13, Jesus says, you are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. Salt in Jesus' day did loads of things. It preserved meat, stopped it from rotting. It healed things. Have you ever had a mouth ulcer and your mum says, warm salty water, don't swallow it but swill it around? It's horrible, isn't it? And that pain to begin with and the ulcer, and then it slowly begins to heal it. Salt seasons. It makes a difference to the food that it goes on. And it's valuable in Jesus' day. Roman soldiers were actually paid with salt. That's how valuable it was. Can you imagine if at the end of the month your boss said to you, well done, you've worked really hard today, here's some Malden salt to show you how, not ordinary salt, Malden flaked salt, well done, off you go. You'd be gutted, but in their day they'd say, thank you, this is so important. And it was simple. Everyone knew salt. And everyone should know us. We should be simple in our approach to people. No angles or edges or manipulation, but we're just there. Wherever we are salt. And we're scattered throughout the world. Anybody here go to school? I'm not going to ask you to say anything. Anyone here go to school? Yeah, about 4 of you go to school. There's some parents here that need to have a word. You're salt when you go to school. When you go through the gates, when you talk to your teacher, when you sit next to somebody, when somebody next to you's pen doesn't work and they say, have you got one I could borrow? And you say, yeah, here, have this one. I'm with you in this and we'll learn together. Anybody here work in paid employment? Yep. When you go there, you are salt. The way you talk to the people that you work with. If you're the boss, do you take time to talk to the people that work for you? Do you treat them with dignity and respect? The number of people who put on a good show on a Sunday and have their Christian face and then are an absolute what's it when they're a boss in the week, it doesn't add up. Anybody here in the caring professions, whether it's voluntary or paid, school, care home, hospital, any of those things? Yeah, that's all the tired ones you can see there. You are salt when you're with somebody as their life draws to a close. When you're with a child that can't work out where they need to go for their next lesson. When you stand outside the restroom as somebody is in there before they go into the day centre for their lunch. In all those everyday run-of-the-mill things, you are salt. Anybody here care for someone in their family, whether it's a child, a parent, somebody else? You are salt as you look after that person. I know that sometimes you get tired and sometimes you get irritable and sometimes you maybe mutter something under your breath, but you are salt, making a difference in that situation. In that verse, Jesus says, if the salt loses its saltiness, it's not worth anything. How can we lose our saltiness? I think part of the answer comes from Rowan Williams, the late Archbishop of Canterbury, who says, an unhealthy church is a group in which the unity of the church has been reduced to homogeneity, which means they're all the same, of opinions and habits, so that certain styles of devotion, for example, or certain expressions of what God means to this or that person are frowned on. Virtue becomes identified with uncontroversial ordinariness, and there is a nervous cultural sameness in the way people talk, dress, and so on. Well, someone had to wear a suit today, didn't they, to look different? But when we're all just the same and we don't think, and there's an oppression that you must believe this, the saltiness, I think, is being lost. Jesus says you are salt, and Jesus says you are light. In that same passage, he says, you are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Jerusalem was literally a city on a hill. Its white stones, as you came towards it, shone like a lamp. It would almost blind you. You'd need shades if they had them in those days, which they didn't. You could see Jerusalem as someone travelling towards it from miles away. And a lamp, the church, should light the room, the world. People should see the church and think, wow, that is an attractive place. The German theologian Dietrich Bonhoeffer, when he was imprisoned by the Nazi regime in the war just before he was assassinated, said a few things in letters he wrote. He said the church should be at the centre of the village. We should be the place where people think, I can go there and I will get help, support and love. The followers are a visible community, not hidden behind walls, but seen by other people. And he says it is by seeing the cross and the community beneath it that people come to believe in God. Maybe Dietrich Bonhoeffer's not your style. Maybe you're more in line with the theologian Harry Styles. Harry Styles said this: it's not about being I am this mystic thing. I think the difference is we're all ordinary people, and there's some people who let other people watch you be an ordinary person. This pop star says, just be who you are and let people see who you are. And I believe extending his analogy through that, they will see God. Neil, is it not arrogant to say, I'm the salt of the earth and I'm the light of the world, I bring flavour and I bring light and wholeness? No, because we're not saying, I'm the salt of the earth and I'm the light of the world. It's Jesus that says, you are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. It's not something we're claiming for ourselves. It's something that Jesus is proclaiming over us. So it's not whether we feel it or not. Jesus says you are the salt and you are the light. Do you notice with salt, if it stays in its little tub on the table, it's useless, isn't it? Somebody has to put their hand in our family, we wash our hands before dinner, and take it out and sprinkle it on the food. A candle can sit on a fireplace forever. If somebody doesn't take a match and light it and then light the candle will never light. It's Jesus that sprinkles us. It's Jesus that lights us. And we respond to that sprinkling and that lighting. How are we salt of the earth? I went on a cooking course a few months ago, and the chef, who was a professional chef for a Premier League football team, he wouldn't tell us which one it was, but he kept putting salt on stuff. And every time he put salt on stuff, this one woman who was slightly older than me would go, And he said, you can put as much salt on as you want. It's all about personal flavour and about health and about your body. He said, but put the salt on so that it brings flavour to the meal. Not overwhelming it, not dulling it down, but just lifting it slightly. How are we the salt of the earth? We should add flavour wherever we go. The flavour of the kingdom of God that we looked at last week. We should bring love, forgiveness, justice, inclusion to the places that we go to. How are we the light of the world? I've been going through some challenges the last few months, and I've written 10 commandments for myself to help me live a better life that I keep in my pocket all the time. And one of those little reminders to me is, and they're all 3 words long, one of them is, let ghosts rest. So whenever anyone comes into my mind that I'm upset with, or someone who's been horrible to me, rather than letting them live in my head rent-free, I just say, let ghosts rest. And it's my way of saying, God, I've forgiven this person way back, and I'm not going to go back to that place again. Let ghosts rest. How are we light in the world? I think through people seeing us as people who forgive. We live in a world where everyone wants revenge. Everyone wants to be right. Everyone wants to get what they think they should have. And as a church, we should, and I believe here we do, model something different, which is we forgive one another. People can visit our church on a Sunday, and before long, they will see through our church services, our spicy songs and our slick sermons if we're not a forgiving people. They'll see through it, and they'll see us as phonies. Forgiveness is the baseline. I went to see one of my sports football mentors, and I took him out for dinner a few months ago. He's in this club. It's one of the political party's posh clubs, and they let Christians there for a very cheap price, because about 50 years ago they thought if we let Christians come in, the MPs will behave themselves while they're in here. So we let them in on the cheap, and they can monitor the MPs. And so I went in there with him, and we had our coffee in one of the reading rooms, and then we went into the dining area, and as we went in, I sat down, and it was a really warm day, and I went to take my jacket off, and the waitress was at my shoulder. I was like this. She went, "Please keep your jacket on, sir." I put my jacket back on, and my friend looked at me and laughed, because he knew the rules. He knew that in this place, you have to keep your jacket and tie on at all times. But he didn't tell me. I felt right plumb, because I was like this, and I should have been like this. He was a member, and he knew the rules. Growing up in church over the last almost 50 years, I look back and I sometimes shake my head at some of the rules that I protected that really were not important. At my last church, we had a church directory. Do you remember the paper version ones? Some of you are going to go home and complain that we haven't got one of those now when you have your lunch. We had one of those church directories with everyone's photos in. We actually nicked the idea from this church. And at the back, we had all the church members written in order. And there were about 200 of them. They weren't written in alphabetical order. They were written in order of when you became a church member. And if you were married, the man always came before the woman. This is over 20 years ago. Don't stone me now. And I didn't like this, because I thought what we're saying to new people is the most important people in these churches are the ones that are higher up the list of church members. And so I said, next year when we do the church directory, we're going to put all the names in alphabetical order. And one person came to see me. He's in his 90s now. He's still alive. He's adorable. And he said, "Neil, I'm not happy with this change." And I said, "Why not?" And he said, "I'm number 3 on the list." And I said, what are you worried about? And he said, "Well, I think the 2 above me, they're quite old. And if we have a cold winter..." I said, "You're saying to me you could be number 1? And he said, "Yeah, and I want to be number 1. And I said, "Come on. Is that what church is about?" And he looked at me and he smiled and he went, "You're right. Put it in alphabetical order. Church is the only club that exists primarily for non-members. Do you believe that? 5 of us do. One writer said these words, Reggie McNeil, in the future, the church that gets it will spend its resources on strategies for community transformation. Members obviously have needs for pastoral care and spiritual growth. It is critical that these be addressed. However, I am raising the question of how many church activities for the already saved are justified when there are people who have never been touched with Jesus' love. The answer is a whole lot less than we've got going on now. We are salt. We are light. That is church.